Hello and welcome to the After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project. My name is Michael Stuart. I'm going to be one of your co-hosts today. The other is my friend, Bren Briggs, the founder of the Eden Project. Can I say the founder? Is there a better way to say that?
Founder, that's probably good.
Founder?
Yeah.
You found it somewhere. You created it.
Yep. Yeah. Executive director is a title I go off of right now.
Oh, yeah. See, that sounds even better. I don't know, founder, executive director. Hey, we'll figure out what we want to call it and what anybody else out there might want to call you as well. So since we are on our very first podcast for the Eden Project, and we're both very excited about this, we're going to take this episode and we're going to talk about you and the Eden Project, and a tiny bit about me, so people get to know who we are and what we're doing and why we're doing it. I think that's
fair.
I think that's a wonderful thing, don't you think? So since this, we were talking about, who we're reaching, who we're trying to reach, and what we're doing with this. But I think first, so people kind of get to know who you are and who we are right off the bat. I think since this is your baby, let's start with you, Bren Briggs. So what exactly prompted you to start the Eden Project?
So since we're not going off our script and we're going to talk something different, I appreciate you starting it out there, catching me kind of off guard about me as opposed to the show or the organization. But great place to start, I suppose. You said about me first.
Well, yeah, because people need to know your background. I mean, I know what it is, but the two different military services, what led you to start the Eden Project, and then we're going to go into exactly what we do and who we do it for, because that's going to be the meat of it, and we want to get into that in just a little bit.
Gotcha. So I spent 28 years in uniform. Mm-hmm. The first 8 years I was in the Marine Corps. I was enlisted in the Marine Corps. Did all the really cool Marine Corps stuff that people see on Hollywood or see on the movies. That's what I got to do for the first part of my career. Mid 90s or so, the military was cut in half, or gutted basically. And the Marine Corps was cut in half.
Really? My
half of the Marine Corps was cut out. They just kind of went across the board and said, it felt like there was no real plan. It was just, we're going to cut the military.
Right.
And no matter what I could do, there was just an arbitrary, that MOS is going. I probably could have stayed in, but the writing was on the wall that there were no promotions. It was you could do 4 more years, but then it's done. And what really wasn't gonna just what I felt like waste 4 years. So I did 8 years in the Marine Corps, and then got out. And to be honest, I was kind of bitter. All I wanted to do was be a Marine the whole time. From the earliest memory growing up, I wanted to be a Marine. All through high school, it was Marine Corps, Marine Corps, Marine Corps. There was no college talk. It was just Marine Corps. So when I got out, it was kind of a bitter experience. I spent 11 months just kind of kicking around from dumb job to dumb job, trying to figure out what to do.
Right.
So I joined the reserves. I really missed a camaraderie, and I think that was a big thing that I noticed back then. You don't know at the time, I guess, when you're going through something,
right, until
you look back at it. I really missed the camaraderie, being around guys that were similar, like-minded. So I found a reserve unit. I was in college at the time. I was working at a church at the time. I missed a camaraderie of other military-minded people. So I joined a reserve unit.
And just for people who don't know, like maybe even myself, reserve, there's no particular branch, or is it just open?
Oh, yeah. So, no, it was an Army reserve. I went from the Marine Corps, active duty Marine Corps in the infantry to an Army reserve unit. So, and the difference between active duty is that's all you do. Mm-hmm. You're 24/7 military, the uniform all the time. To the reservist, where it was, the big expression back in the 90s was the weekend warrior. Mm-hmm. Are you familiar with that?
Term? Oh yeah.
Well, the concept pre 9/11 was you worked 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summertime, and that was all a reservist had to do. After the towers came down, that whole concept kind of changed. But so while I was in college, it was kind of like that. It was an Army Reserve unit. I drilled or worked 1 weekend a month, and then did my 2 weekends in the summer, 2 weeks in the summer. And that was it for, the whole time I was in college. Skip ahead to near the end of the 1990s, early 2000. The towers came down when the towers were attacked.
Mm-hmm.
I was put back on active duty at that point I was offered a direct commission. So previously I was enlisted, and then I became an officer, a medical officer. So the towers came down. I'm a medical officer. I was put back on active duty and worked in counterterrorism for a long time. So I kind of felt like now I'm back with the people doing really cool stuff. That's what I really, really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Spent about 20 years in the Army. So counting the reserve time and then the rest of the active duty time. So I guess to kind of sum up all of that time that you mentioned, it was 8 years in the Marine Corps, another 20 years in the Army.
And when was it over? Like when did?
Yep, I retired November of 2013. Spent the last couple of years at Fort Bragg.
Mm-hmm.
I had a job, but because I was injured in the late 2006 timeframe, spent a couple of years, rebuilding this. We've talked about that before.
Right. Well, I want to make sure that people, I didn't know if you wanted to share that on here today, but we were talking about the accident. So I wasn't sure what year that was. That was just 2006?
Yeah.
Wow.
2006 was the accident, the Humvee rollover. And at some point, maybe we'll unwrap it in more detail later. Right. But I had 6 major surgeries to rebuild my face. I spent 2 years in a traumatic brain injury clinic at Fort Bragg. The last 2 years of my career. Again, that wasn't the best time, mm-hmm. but that's how my career ended.
Mm-hmm.
They said, "We've done all we can do for you. It's time to go." So once again, I left the military kind of bitter. I didn't know anything else. My entire adult life was military, from 18 years old until however old I was in 2013.
we won't talk about that one, will we?
Right. So that's all I knew. Got out again and wasn't ready to get out. I was on a promotion list. I was, looking forward to staying in, but the Army said, "Nope, time to go."
Hmm. So, and then after, but did you feel at that point, maybe, I don't know, that you were in need of certain things, or whether it was mentally, physically, emotionally, things that you were going through? I kind of feel like maybe this is where it's going into, quote, the start of the Eden Project.
I'm going to say no, because, do you know the story, the expression about boiling the frog?
Oh, yeah.
You put a frog in the water that's at room temperature, whatever, and you slowly turn the heat up. And over time, the frog gets boiled. And I know that's not a real story, but it's kind of a cool analogy, and it fits what this is. I didn't know. Things were really dark. They were really bad, but it got that way over time. So when I got out, all I was thinking was, this sucks. I thought I was prepared for civilian life, but again, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. I wasn't prepared for it. I went through all the transition classes and did all the things that we were supposed to do when we left the military. But I wasn't ready. And I didn't know I wasn't ready until it was really, really too late. Things really fell apart horribly. It just... So I think to answer your question, I didn't know it was bad for probably 3 years, from 2013 to 2016-ish. It's just a really, really dark time. And then another buddy of mine got together, and we realized that. So we spent those 3 years talking with him. He was going through the same thing. It was just like a lot of conflict and tension and stress with people around him. Wasn't finding a job and wasn't being able to hold a job. And we saw some of our close friends take their life. It was just hard for everybody around us. And we thought, man, something is wrong here. What is going on? And it was really 3 years or so after I got out of the Army mm-hmm. that it kind of hit me that this ain't right.
Well, hopefully it was a good way, an enlightenment to make things a little bit better, move forward, right?
Yeah. I was working for Coke, and you would think working at Coca-Cola, a big major company, you'd think that things would have been really great, but there was just an emptiness. Mm-hmm. It was in 2016, and that's when we started the Eden Project. And it was basically because there were other people around us, other vets around us who were struggling. Adam and I were both, Adam Anderson is the guy that I was referring to. We both were having our own issues, and we thought there's got to be something for us. And with as many vets that are out there, and you see all the commercials and things on TV and these other major national organizations. We don't need to mention all that.
Right.
They talk about all the great things they're doing, but either they are doing them and they're doing it someplace else, or maybe they're not really doing it, but they're cashing in on it.
Right.
That's what we ran into. There was no help here for us. And we decided that we either needed to figure out how to get it, or in our case, we decided to create it. And that really was the genesis or the beginning of the Eden Project.
That was 2016. Is that what you said?
February of 2016. Yeah.
Which is crazy because I thought it was, I don't know what I was thinking, but I've known you since then.
You were really, and
I was like right at the beginning.
You were, and I guess not knowing it, but you were right there at the very beginning with us, emceeing one of the biggest events we had done at that time, or in the 8 years of our existence. I mean, wow. You were right there with us all along.
Glad I could be part of it.
And now look at us.
And here we are on our very first podcast, hopefully the first of many more to come.
Right.
So the Eden Project has been created now, and it's kicking off, and here we are in 2024. What are we, 8 years into this?
Yeah.
Is it where you expected it to be?
No, I've always been a planner. So I thought, okay, if we do this in year one, we should be here. We do this in year two, we're going to be further down the road. And if, we make these connections and have these partnerships and, whatever else, but you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
A great plan, but it didn't really come together because I knew the military, and all the people that I got together to help start the Eden Project were all military. We were all either commanders or operation officers, and we knew how to, from that world, get things going and start things, but we had no clue about the nonprofit world. So I'm thinking, people love vets. All you got to do is turn on TV, and within half an hour, you're going to see at least a commercial or someone talk about the veteran community or something. So I thought, surely raising money for something like this would be pretty easy. It's not.
It is not, ladies and gentlemen. Right, it is not.
Right.
Exactly.
So I felt like we had a great product. We had a great service. We were doing the right thing. We had good people on the team, but we were lacking someone who understood the nonprofit world. So are we where I thought we would be? No. But we're probably where we're supposed to be. Maybe if we had grown faster, things wouldn't have come together like they are now. But the first couple of years were a big struggle. A lot of the money, year one and part of year two, was out of my pocket to get us going. I think I'm I don't say a sucker, but I've got a soft spot for people who are hurting, and I couldn't do nothing while these other guys were just hurting or were struggling in one way or another. So in the absence of knowing how to raise money, I just spent my own, and that was year one. And part of year two, we found some other local people that got it, and they saw a little bit of what we were doing, and they kind of supported it and helped us come along. And God willing, 8 years later, we're still doing it. But I think we're kind of at that point now that maybe this could be the breakthrough. This next couple of years could change things.
Yeah, I mean, as we all grow, we have our desires to do things in our human minds and what we can foresee. And then, of course, if you're a believer or follower of Christ, you're like, hey, it's God's timing, not our timing. And but now you have a wonderful board. Yeah. For the Eden Project that helps with decisions and guidance and progression and such. Right.
We've got a better mix of folks now. So, as the boards grow, some people have rolled off, and we've been able to bring people in that understand the business world. They understand the nonprofit world, and they are offering better guidance and opening doors and making connections. So we're at a position now to do things that we thought we were going to be able to do 6-8 years ago.
I see. Okay, so now the big question is the Eden Project. Why does it exist? Who does it exist for? And what exactly is it that we do for people?
Yeah. The main mission or main intent is to serve the veteran community. So that's the vet and his or her family member. What I like to say is it's the one-stop shop, and those around the veteran community or those maybe near an active duty base understand that one-stop shop concept. We don't, nor do we ever want to provide every single thing that everybody needs. Right. But we want to be that voice where you come to us and we can connect with, if you need a job, we don't hire every single person, right. But we have companies that help write resumes, and we have partners that do hire veterans and specifically are looking for vets. So we help with that. Mm-hmm. We used to have an in-house person that helped write or go over the VA benefits. Now, because that's one of the biggest claims or biggest needs that we have a partner that helps with VA claims or disability claims. So housing, food, shelter, VA claims, mental health, those are kind of the big areas that most of our veterans and veteran families need. And that really has become our niche. So we're that one-stop shop for vets in the vet community. But lately, this past year, we've kind of expanded into the first responder community as well.
Okay. Well, see, I was going to ask about that. First responders, still active military. Yep. Well, I think veterans are the initial target to help. It's kind of branched out into, there's still some people that are active and
that's right.
Just may need some help or some sort of assistance in some way, right?
Yeah. So the last year we had a couple active duty Marines in our peer program. So they do the work during the day, and then they come to our program at night. So I'm glad you made that distinction. It's although the initial push and focus was for vets when they get out and helping them find who they are, helping them understand their place in community and in their family, helping them reestablish a purpose. That's one of the big things that we noticed in the military is you don't think about it when you're in, but you have a purpose. Mm-hmm. You know what your job is. You have a mission, and it's kind of, I won't say beat into us, but we understood what our job was in the military. Once you get out, that that purpose is gone, and not knowing that's what the problem is. That's where a lot of the guys and gals tend to flounder, is they lack a purpose or a meaning in their life, and they get into some unhealthy things. We've talked about over the past couple of years, the drinking, the drugs, just some bad behavior.
Nightlife, going places you shouldn't really be going. And
that's right.
In this state of mind, that kind of thing, for sure, right?
Exactly. And not doing it because they think that's the right thing, but they're looking for something and not really understanding that's, they're missing something. They're trying to fill that void with whatever they can. That's where we come in. Our peer program helps to identify that and help each individual find what their purpose is and give them meaning.
Right. So if anybody's actually, I was going to say tuning in for the first time, but since it's the first podcast, but I think it's good to establish where we are, but it's not necessarily limited to this surrounding area where we are, especially with a podcast that's going to be reaching, hopefully, people all over the country, and somebody might need some help. And so this might continue to cause the Eden Project to grow and branch out a little bit more to help out in other states and such. So we're located in Fayetteville, Georgia. Yeah. We're in the Trilith Studios right now where we're recording our podcast. And yes, that's the studios where they do the Marvel movies and
Yeah.
all the fun stuff and, the acting world and such. But it's not limited to just this city or this county.
Right.
You help people in a lot of areas throughout Georgia and maybe a little bit, not so much outside of that, but we expect that to grow.
Right.
Would that be safe to say?
Absolutely. So the first couple of years, because of my 28 years, my entire adult life was spent in the military. I know men and women across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So year 1, year 2, we had a big focus at Fort Hood and Fort Bragg still. So although we were based here, focused here, and the intent was to serve the local community, we were getting calls from all over the country. Probably the furthest away was a Marine out in California at Fort Pendleton. We were, if someone calls us, I'm not going to say no. We're here to help them.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, we still serve people outside this area, but most of our contacts and resources are right here in Georgia.
Would you mind sharing the telephone number and the website?
You're going to ask me something that I don't even know my own phone number.
Well, that's
kind of funny.
No, we have it on our cue cards anyway. We know our website at least.
The website is Eden, EDEN -project.com.
There we go. I hear that all the time. Eden-project.com. And that's EDEN. Named after your lovely, beautiful daughter.
It is. So it's actually, the name comes from 2 different areas. Obviously, it's my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter Eden. I remember a couple of times I had my face rebuilt. One of the surgeries, they cut both of my jaws out and rebuilt them, put them back in, and had me all wired up. My face was as big as a basketball, but not orange. It was like yellow and blue and green, just totally messed up.
Sounds lovely.
Pretty sight. Well, I remember coming home after that surgery, and Eden was really little, and she was hiding in a corner afraid of me. And I thought, my God, not just because of the surgery, but just the look and just everything else that was going on at that time. No child should be afraid of their parent, and that feeling stuck with me.
Mm-hmm.
And that really was one of the reasons that we stuck with the Eden Project was really around her.
Mm-hmm.
But no child should be afraid of their parent, whether it's looks or how they act or whatever. So that was behind it. But also, you mentioned earlier, if you're a believer or following Christ, the Garden of Eden.
Mm-hmm.
What we thought in the beginning was, if we could get people back to the way things are supposed to be, all these problems go away. So
Yep.
between my daughter Eden and the Garden of Eden, that's where the name came from.
Right. And listen, while we may be Christian followers, we're open to everybody. I don't want to think, oh, this is just a Christian thing. It's not, because that's part of Christian love is loving on everybody.
Yeah.
And so in the Garden of Eden is a beautiful place. There's peace,
Yep.
there's love, there's just, everything is just the way that it is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And who was that provider in the Garden of Eden? Was God. Well, here in this situation, when we talk about the Eden Project and what we're doing for veterans and some of the active military, it's providing peace. It's providing help and helping people be where they need to be.
That's right.
And all the different things that we've done together. You mentioned that very first. What was the event on the square in Fayetteville?
It was the Veterans Day. It was a Veterans Day event.
That's right. That's right. I remember that.
I don't think the first one was Boots, Blues, and Barbecue, but it was. I think it was just a Veterans Day event. You emceed it. The weather, like typical weather in.
Let me tell you how this works. So around here, that you have this beautiful weather in the South. You're in Georgia, and it was like shorts and T-shirts. About 2 days before the event came, the North Gate opened up, and it just, the wind. It was kind of cloudy and cold.
And cold.
And cold. It was not what we were expecting right before that. I remember setting up and like, man, we're going to freeze to death out here. This just wasn't, what we were expecting.
But like a champ, you made it come together. But if you were cold, you certainly didn't show it. It was a good event.
It's thermal underwear, baby. Yeah. So, and then we had another event. That was the Boots, Blues, and Barbecue event, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? Is that the second one?
Yes. Okay.
And for some reason, I don't remember any. That's not the Aaron Schust one, was it?
No. So we had in the beginning. In the beginning, that's how we started. Was we thought if we, in order to get people to know who we are, let's host events. And again, a lot of our team members were operation officers. They know how to plan and organize and bring things together. So we were planning these big events, and we had 58 volunteers at the time. So lots and lots of folks who were there to help and could make things happen. So whether it was we had two really big Veteran Day events we planned. We had an Aaron Schust concert that we did.
I think that was the third one though.
I think you're right. Yeah.
And that was, we brought in Aaron Schust, who's a Christian artist. And it seems like every Veterans Day, the day before, anywhere from 12, 24, 48 hours before.
Yeah.
Man, that north gate opens up, and here came the cold weather once again, and it was kind of bitter cold that day. I remember
it was the weather was horrible for it, but I don't know if you remember or if you had the same conversation with him that I did. But I got backstage, and we had more volunteers than we had paid people at that event.
Showed up.
Yeah, and I'm backstage, I'm fretting, and I'm all upset, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, and I'm apologizing to him about the low turnout.
Right.
And where I think that it's my job to calm and make him feel good, it was the opposite.
Yep.
He said that people that are supposed to be here are here. Mm-hmm. He said, if I've got to make this a personal, like a private event.
A little private event, yeah, like a little get to know you guys, a little quaint kind of thing. He was so good about that.
He said, that's how I'll do it. Yeah. And man, it really was a phenomenal, it just really felt good.
I remember I did the same thing backstage, and I said, man, I'm really sorry for the turnout, but it's so cold. And I guess people weren't expecting that. He said, man, he says, I played to worse. Right. Trust me. I've been in where it's like 2 or 3 people.
Wow.
And then it really is an intimate setting. So Bob, what's your name?
That's the word I was looking for, was intimate. I mean, and he really made it feel phenomenal. So yeah, so it's funny you remember those things too.
Well, you start to think about some of the events, and honestly, I've done so many broadcasts and MC things that I'll forget them, or I'll remember that I did them, but I don't remember anything that happened and such. But I do remember several of those. And then some of the things that we do is the Eden Project for our veterans and such. The one that stood out was the one we did a few months ago with the lady who needed the yard work. Yeah. And can we use that as an example? You know how to mute your phone when you're on a podcast.
That's funny.
Can we use that one as an example? The lady from the National Guard.
So there's 2 of them about the same time. Yeah. Do you want to tell that, or you want me to tell it?
Well, you start. I mean, I can join in on my part.
Yeah. So we take a lot of calls and emails requesting for help. Mm-hmm. A lot of times it's people looking for food or help with bills, looking for jobs. There's a lot of depression and anxiety and stuff that goes on out there. But every now and then we get that outlier, that call that's like, wait a minute. And that's what this one was. We got a call from someone who the mother is in the National Guard. So mm-hmm. The difference in the National Guard generally, or actually they work for the governor, and they typically or historically, work within the state. So she's in the National Guard. The daughter of this National Guard got some type of infection, mm-hmm. and after months and months or several weeks, she ended up losing both of her hands and I think a leg or something.
Right. Sepsis, I think, is.
Yeah. So the mom spent all the time in the hospital with her daughter, like she should.
Right.
So, but while she's gone, grass continues to grow.
Exactly.
And things need to happen, and the maintenance around her house fell into disrepair. So, of course, this is in the summertime, mm-hmm. and the grass is growing and everything's needing attention. So we got the call, And instantly, we put together you and I think 12 other folks or so.
I want to say I thought there was 10 of us total that day, 10 or 11 of us that day total.
But all came together and brought their yard equipment and whatever we needed, and we took care of her place.
And weed eaters and trimmers and all of this stuff, and it definitely needed. And it's not just that; it's also things like she needed someone to get groceries for her, and she. I'm sure she can pay some online bills, but a lot of times people don't realize that when you're focused on something like a family emergency, whether it's whether mental, physical, or anything like that, but also family members, you're putting your time into that. That's kind of like stepping in and helping with the other small stuff in that particular case.
Right. So that was, I'd say kind of an outlier. We don't do that every month or every
we're not a yard
year.
service. Yeah, right.
But just a couple of months ago, I'm not sure if you were involved in this one too. We got another call from another organization. We like to partner with other organizations. I think that's what really makes this community strong. Is no one group can or should do everything. We focus on our specialty, which is our peer programs and our date nights for couples. But we partner with other people to do other things in their specialty. Well, this particular one did gardens. They would build gardens for veterans. And they happen to have a vet in our area who's a Purple Heart recipient and an amputee. And they said, we've got the person, we've got the resources, we just don't have the bodies to help with this. They had gone through our church. Our church recommended us and, hey, call the Eden Project. And sure enough, we went out there and that was an incredible day of service and working and bringing volunteers together and created this amazing raised garden for this guy and his family.
Yeah. You've done so many wonderful things, and we would spend way too much time in a podcast talking about all the things that you've done in the short time that the Eden Project has been around. But I do want to say that for anybody outside of this, or anybody in the area, outside of the area listening, it's not just necessarily, hey, let us come do physical work.
Right.
For you, it's a lot of making phone calls so you can do what you need to have done where you are. Again, whether it's the task situation or it's something you're struggling with emotionally and mentally, and you need someone to talk to and what avenue to go down, you help find the people to provide all of that as well, right?
Yeah. So that's exactly right. That's what, when we say we're the one-stop shop, that's what has worked for us for the last 8 years. Mm-hmm. They call us because maybe they don't know who else to call.
Right.
And from that first call, we can figure out where they are, what resources are specific to their need, and get them the resources.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Okay, so moving forward in our upcoming podcast, we're going to be talking about things like this.
Yep.
We'll use, I'm sure, other examples of things that we've done and things that may come up as we continue to go forward. But also talking about ways where people don't necessarily even have to call or reach out, because we want to share ideas, things that you've done in the past that have worked. Again, going down, I know mental illness is one of the biggest things out there as far as, what people struggle with, ways to help here on the podcast. And so we're certainly inviting people to subscribe to us, to join us as often as we're here. And hopefully we can help them and they can tune in, correct?
Yeah. And so that's something we'll definitely dig in. Probably not today. Today is kind of like the dip your toe in the water day. But over the next several episodes, I think that really is going to be the focus, and the goal is to destigmatize mental health. I don't know what it is about. I don't know if it's a man thing, if it's a military thing, or if it's just a cultural thing. But you can have a broken arm and no one thinks twice about putting a cast on a broken arm. But if you have a mental health issue, if you're depressed or going through something, people think they've got to hide it or bury it or not talk about it. And that just needs to come out. That really, I think, is the one big thing for us, is to bring that out in the open and help people understand that everybody goes through stuff sometimes. although our target audience, if you will, is the veteran community, trauma is trauma, depression is depression. We all experience it, and the tools and the things we're going to talk about will fit everybody.
I think society did a lot of that in the early years. You can imagine going back in the 50s, well, that person's nuts, stay away from him, and it was like, well, don't tell anybody that you're suffering because then you'll get fired, you'll be ostracized, nobody's going to want to be around you, that kind of thing. And we have come to a time now where we're turning that around. And I say we, I say
collectively,
society. We're trying to turn that around. The people who realize that, but there's still going to be people who who want to hide that.
Right.
And it's a pride thing too. I want people to think I've got it all together. I know what I'm doing. And then you go home and you break down and you're in the fetal position on the floor all night. It's not a fun place to be, and you don't have to do that alone. You can reach out to Eden-Project.com. You like that segue?
I like how you put that in there. Yeah. It sounds like you practice it.
Well, I've had a little experience doing this, and real quick, I know some people might want to say, exactly, well, what is my involvement with this? And aside from us being friends and working together and stuff, I've been in the entertainment world most of my life, in radio, a long time radio program career that started way back in the 80s. Yeah, I'm that old. Yeah. And so I started really young. And then I have gone into, I MC events, as we talked about. I do this for multiple businesses and charities and things for many, many years. Also an actor. Been acting with commercials, television shows, been in some films.
Who's the last one you did? I mean, I saw a picture with you, maybe not the very last one, but some kind of popular, well-known guy.
Robert De Niro was in the last one. It was Sebastian Maniscalco and Robert De Niro, Kim Cattrall, David Raish, people like that. It was about my father. Came out in May of last year. Yeah, had a little small part towards the end, but it's it's fun doing that stuff. It's not the size of the part, it's however it is. And so that's kind of my involvement with this. And so Bren, I guess, thought,
it's a little deeper than that.
Michael would be a decent guy to do the podcast. Plus, he didn't know anybody who was famous. And so, and I'm nowhere near being famous. So, but, so here we are.
Well, let me add more to that if I can.
Okay.
So, we've been talking about this for at least 6 months. In my mind, it's probably closer to 8 or 9, kicking it back and forth. And when I came up with the idea of doing a way to reach a bigger audience, and knowing that what Eden Project has needs to get outside of our little area. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking, how do I do it? I know that we've got some really, really cool resources. I know that our program, the things we're going to talk about over the next several weeks and months, is phenomenal. I also know that my voice is boring to listen to, and I don't even like listening to myself. I thought, who is the most dynamic, charismatic person with a really that personality that's going to bring people in? And the only one person I could come up with was you. Honestly.
Well, I'm glad you said that, but I mean, I totally don't agree. I think there's millions of other people around here that might even be better, but I'm just glad to be part of it.
Yeah. I like the I just think it feels right. I think your personality is going to bring people in, and then they're going to stay for like, holy cow, that's a really cool tool.
Well, I mean, I love being part of it. I was never a military guy, never in the military. I have a lot of military friends. At one point, I was married to somebody who was a military brat, but so I'm very well versed in the folks and what they do and such.
Yeah.
Mainly on the golf course. No, I'm just kidding. And then, but to be part of this and do this, because you and I are friends, and I thought, well, of course I'm going to want to do something like this with you.
Gosh, the bad part about old age is I had a really cool thing I was going to add in there, but here it is. I like the fact that there's a military and a non-military person, because you can maybe ask questions that I'm thinking everybody knows, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute, explain that or go into this where I'm just thinking everyone's going to understand it.
Right.
And maybe, not maybe, but you'll throw stuff in there too that the military community may hear from someone else other than me. So I just like the piece where there's some different angles to look at the same thing.
Well, I appreciate that. I agree with that 100%. So we are the Eden Project. And as we stated, the very first podcast, we only see it getting bigger and better as we go along from here.
Yeah.
And so for those who are listening right now, we hope that you will want to tune in again and see all the other things. I mean, I know we have a lot of topics that we've discussed that we're going to be doing over episodes. We're planning on having guests. I already know that we have one guest who has agreed to. He said he's a big supporter of the military.
Do we want to sprinkle it in there, or?
I don't have a problem saying who it is
because he's comfortable with it, right?
Oh, he's totally cool. Yeah, he said, as long as it's with you guys, I'll come in there and do it. Phil Ehart, the drummer for Kansas.
Yeah.
He has become a friend. He and his lovely wife, they're super wonderful people. And he said he would love to come in here and be on a podcast with us and
I'm
talk
excited
about
it. So, of the generation you and I come from, I love his music and I can't wait to. And he's got some experience with this too. So it's not just about, hey, I'm a guy from a band. Right. He's got some experience with some of the stuff we're going to be talking about.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I'm sure, and that's why he's probably but he also likes us too. So that always helps when you're like the host that you're going to go be on the show with and such. So.
You know what we've not done?
What's that?
I don't think we've mentioned the name of the podcast yet.
Oh, I did. I opened up with it because it's so brand new. The After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project.
There you go. So maybe I was so focused on the voice.
No, I said it earlier at the beginning, cool. But it wouldn't hurt to have it throughout here. And of course, the little graphics that we're going to have. And again, all of this will grow and get bigger and better. Lighting, sound, everything as we grow. And we hope that the people that are tuning in will continue to be happy with that and grow with us.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I know we said it before, but maybe we can wrap up and close with this again. We're going to have guests that really focus on some of the main topics and things we're talking about. Of course, Michael and his dynamic personality and me and my big brain. Between the two of us, we're going to bring some focus on mental health issues. That's really the main thing. If you're looking for sports, you're probably not going to get it here. But if you're looking for tools you can use day to day to kind of get through that dark area, or maybe stay on top of the world. If you're doing phenomenal, this is good for you too. There may be some new tools and new techniques we're going to cover, that everybody can use.
I'm so excited about this.
Yeah.
So thank you for letting me be part of it, and I look forward to everything that's coming up. As for everybody else, thank you so much for tuning in. We're grateful for you. Please spread the word, tell some friends, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. We would love to have you be part of our family, right?
That's right.
That's right. So the After Action Report, a podcast from the Eden Project. Thank you so much and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Awesome.